So welcome and congratulations, everyone. My name is Diane Stansbury, and I'm the Assistant Director of Parent and Alumni Engagement here at Cambridge School of Weston. My son, Jason, is a current senior, class of 2020. We're disappointed that we can't all be together in person tonight, but we hope that this webcast will provide some of the same questions and connections to happen. First, a few housekeeping rules. We are recording this and it will be available for all who are unable to attend tonight. This is why we are not asking attendees to share video or audio so we can protect everyone's privacy. You can submit questions anonymously if you like, using the Q&A feature at the bottom of your screen. If you'd like to direct a question to a particular panelist, please just make a note of that with your question and we'll make sure that that person is the person to answer your question. We also have Julie Johnstone, our Assistant Head of School and current parent, working behind the scenes. She'll be watching the chat area and section and fielding questions that come in as you send them in. Anything that's a straightforward question, she'll be answering on the spot. Anything that is a more in-depth question for our panelists, we'll direct directly to our panelists. We've had several questions come in over online via email over the last couple of weeks, and we've decided to put those into different sections and topics. And we're going to try to get to as many of those live as we can. Anything that we don't answer or don't get to, you can feel free to email me directly or any of the panelists or Julie after the webinar is done. So now let's get started. We're going to start with some introductions. I'm going to start by telling you a little bit about how my family came to Cambridge School and some of the activities and things that my son is involved in. So our family came to the Cambridge School of Weston from a local independent school in Cambridge, the Shady Hill School. The progressive education Jason benefited from at Shady Hill, we saw playing out in many ways at Cambridge School, and it just felt like it was a great way to transition into a new school. Jason has a huge list of things that he's involved in and interested in. He plays soccer, he's on the Ultimate Frisbee team, he is part of the JSA debate team, the Junior Statesmen of America, and his ultimate top passion is robotics. You can see behind me, Jason actually designed this background for me using the logo from the robotics team, the competitive robotics team. So there's so much that he has really taken advantage of from the school. So, so that's my story. How about if we have Mike Flanagan start us off with the panelist?
Sure. Thanks so much, Diane. And so, yeah, hi, I'm Mike Flanagan. My family and I live in Winchester, Mass. For those of you who are dialing in or zooming in from outside Boston, it's just a suburb outside Boston. We've got two kids enrolled, two sons enrolled at Cambridge School of Weston. Liam is a senior, and his younger brother Brendan is a sophomore. When Liam is, both of them have a real interest in technology. Both of them are on the robotics team. Liam is really into the arts and into design, both video and music and a lot of other things. Also plays Ultimate Frisbee. He's friends with Jason, Diane's son. His younger brother Brendan is just really interested in science and studying. He tells me that when he gets older, he wants to be a dermatologist because they have good hours. So those of you out there who are in the medical field, you can push back on that. But that's sort of his trajectory right now. But both of them are really happy at the school, would love it, and would love to dig into kind of answering your questions about why it's been such a good fit for them.
Great. Thanks so much, Mike. Karen, can you introduce yourself?
Hi, so my name is Karen Hinds. Hi, everyone. I am in Malden, which is another suburb outside of Boston. And I have a daughter, Kai, who is also a boarder at Cambridge School of Weston, and she's a freshman. Like Diane, we came from a progressive education background, independent school in Cambridge, Fairweather Street School, and fell in love with CSW for the warmth and, Kai's ability to feel like she can be herself and to bring her real self to the school. she is very much into science and design, and I think that spoke to her throughout her many visits prior to becoming a part of CSW.
Great, thank you so much. John, how about you go next?
Sure. Hey, Diane, how are you?
I'm good. Good to see you.
Good. Yeah, so my name is John Finnerty. I have an 11th grader named Kate. We live in Winchester, Mass, although I promise all of you that I've not seen Mike Flanagan in at least 3 weeks. We have been self-quarantining. But Kate is loving CSW. She is involved with the dance program, with the theater program. She's one of the co-heads of the a cappella group. She is a tour guide, so she has become excellent at walking backwards. And I did not realize this, but she has found a love for both math and chemistry while at CSW, which I never would have imagined going in.
Great. Thank you so much, John. Next up, we have Steve Farley.
Good evening, everyone. Thanks for coming tonight. I am the proud parent of 2 CSW students. My son Sam graduated last year and somewhat sadly ended his first year in college early because of this virus, but he got so much courage at CSW that he went up to Canada for his first year of school. So that was a wonderful experience. Sam started in 10th grade, coming from a small boys prep school in Concord, Mass. And I think he was drawn to CSW by the sense of community and the opportunity to do deep learning. And my daughter, Elise, is currently a junior, and she came there from public schools. And for her, the opportunity, again, to learn deeply and to learn about a lot of different things really quickly appealed to her. She's a scientist, artist, athlete, plays lacrosse, field hockey. And I think for her, the deciding factor between that and an outstanding public school was she got to do the really cool learning early. She didn't have to wait till she was a senior to dig into those courses that really asked the questions that mattered to her. And my wife and I are both educators, so for us to send our children to a school where they're able to really pursue their passions and interests, it was a no-brainer, and we've been thrilled with the results.
Fantastic. Finally, we have Rosemary Jordan. Hi, Rosemary. How are you?
Hi, I'm zooming in from Northern California, and I'm really happy to be part of this. I'm the parent of Cameron, who is a 2nd year. Cameron uses they, them, their pronouns, so you'll see that as part of my explanation. We chose Cambridge School of Weston after 10 years of international bilingual education in Berkeley, California. So for anyone who's got a student who's been in the bilingual track, I'm happy to talk about that transition, which has been marvelous. CSW was just incredible in supporting a student with fluency in another language. And I can talk a lot about the boarding experience from across the country, which is a unique and special and really has turned out to be a wonderful experience for our family. We chose CSW for a lot of the reasons that other people have described, which is a progressive education. We were looking for something more flexible than a very traditional international curriculum. And we were also looking for a place that really prized inclusion and a love and acceptance of all people. And that's something that has been just blowing me away over these last 2 years, has really been something I've found to be true about the school. Cameron enjoys the dance program, art and design, like a number of the other parents have talked about. I'm just incredibly impressed by the creativity and artistic endeavors of all of the students at the school. And it's one of the reasons why it's such a great, fun place to be, even though it's a relatively small school.
Great. Wonderful. Well, thank you all so much for being here tonight. Participants who are watching, you're in for a real treat because you really have a great wealth of knowledge and experience here with these parents on the panel. So let's get started. We have our first question is what was most helpful for your child in transitioning to CSW, especially if they didn't know anyone? So John, how about if you start us off with answering that first question?
Sure, happy to, Diane. So, so my daughter, Katie, spent the first 8 years of her academic career from, kindergarten through 8th grade at Belmont Day School, which was a fabulous experience. So there were actually several kids who matriculated on to CSW. So she had a pretty good feeling and knowledge of the school. I will say very early on I think it was the end of the summer, it was sort of our first experience having kids on campus and being part of her group that she was going to go to school with. There was a picnic. And at that picnic, the kids got to meet their peer mentors. So there are groups of maybe 5 to 8 or 5 to 10 kids that are set up with peer mentors who are sophomores, juniors, and seniors. And I have vivid memories of that picnic where they set the kids up and they're off to the races and they're gone. And then the parents are kind of hanging out with each other. So it was a great way and those kids become their network right out of the gates. And that was super special for her. And she still remains friends with lots of those kids today.
Fantastic. Great. Steve, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, as I was listening to John think in those connections and where they were made for both of my children, I think they would probably talk about their advisory group. In what a special opportunity that was to be with mixed age groups, so that there were students and there are still in my daughters from different grades. And these advisors for both of my children, they're different people. We're really skilled at getting the students to think about both their individual goals, but also about who they wanted to be as a group that's meeting regularly every week and is going to support each other. And I think for my children, that was a real helpful bridge to get into the community.
Great, fantastic. Does anyone else have anything to add? Karen, would you like to add something?
Sure. I just wanted to echo Steve as well. That's what I was thinking. The advisor that Kai got was very helpful in helping to build bridges to different people and different students, and that was fantastic. The other thing too was the clubs that CSW offered was a beautiful way for Kai to integrate into the community and to get to know other people across grades. That was significant. And she, just the fact that there are so many and meets all of the different needs was a really nice access point for her as well.
Fantastic. Great. Okay, let's see. We have another question from a parent participant. Assuming your child had a jump/change in workload upon starting at CSW, how did they handle that transition? I'm particularly curious about about how they balance the work with the additional opportunities for socializing. So how do anyone want to talk about sort of making that transition to workload? Mike, what would you like to
Sure. So both my kids came up through the Winchester public schools, and the Winchester schools, they're really good. It's a nice suburb. The schools are very high performing. They give kids, a lot of challenging homework. They have really good outcomes. I think the biggest change for our kids was the change in the type and I guess quality of the work. My kids don't bring home worksheets. I haven't ever seen them sort of fill out any kind of mimeographed piece of paper and kind of hand it back in. The faculty at CSW really spent a lot of time creating deep kind of project opportunities for students to kind of dig deep into the work. There's a sense of urgency in a really good way because of the mod system. When you have 6 weeks to get rolling in a subject, or maybe it's to read a book or to kind of cover a period of history or a theme, you really can't mess around. There's not a lot of throat clearing. So they kind of jump right into it. And it also is kind of a nice forcing function for kind of just leaning out all the busy work that you might find in a different kind of academic approach. So I guess for us, the biggest change was sort of a focus on quality over quantity. With that said, because there is so much less busy work, I never felt, especially in 9th grade or 10th grade, kind of transition years, that my kids were sort of drowning in work. That like there was never work for work's sake. There was never this sense of like, oh, we're going to weed you out of this course by making it really hard. It seems to be a real kind of philosophy like school shouldn't hurt. And now my oldest son is a senior. He's taking calculus. He took comp sci too. Like he works very, very hard. It's getting challenging, but he really likes it. So I'll cut myself off there.
Great. Rosemary, do you have something to add?
Yeah, I just also wanted to add that the school does a really wonderful job in the first year in doing some skill building around time management, and they obligate the first year students to spend time in the library. That makes sure that they get in the right habits early on, and then over time those sort of restrictions or obligations are released. And I think it paces really nicely with the students settling into their routines. I personally think that this mod system is way more humane, way more responsive to the adolescent brain and the developmental cycle. I think this piles of homework that goes on elsewhere is contrary to what we just know. And I'm not an educator, but I can imagine Steve and others might have something to say about that. So to me, it's just the right amount of intensity for where these students are in their developmental cycles. Actually just was a wonderful relief, quite frankly, in terms of really a better balance.
Great. Steve, what would you like to add?
I just would add, for me, that is the magic of this place. In the very best sense of the world, it's like going to college as a ninth grader or 10th grader, in that you really get to learn deeply, and that deep learning may be in the classroom, it may be on the athletic field, it may be in a club. It's fascinating to watch that, and for me to watch that with both of my children, to see that if the work's meaningful, they'll do it. And that was something I worried about. I am committed to progressive education, but when you really see it in action, you have to put a lot of trust in both the school and the child to know themselves and to have the courage to pursue that deep learning. And so now my daughter is a junior. Yeah, she's got some late nights, but that's because she's in clubs, she's on sports teams, she wants to do it all. And that's a good skill to learn at home too, before she heads off to college.
Great. We have a question about advisory and advisory groups. Someone, I can't remember who it was, but someone mentioned advisory group in one of your previous answers. So do students also meet one-on-one with an advisor, or do they only meet in advisory group? And can anyone start us off talking about the advisory group program at the school and their students' experience with advisory? Steve?
I don't want to monopolize this conversation, so I'll be quiet for it, but I did bring it up initially. And I think for me, what was so interesting, there were really two observations about advisors. First, our advisor for our oldest child was really good at managing my anxiety as a parent, and wondering, is my son making the most of the opportunity before him? So he was a great blocker on that, and he was right. Sam was, and he did great stuff. And then I think the other thing is that both of my children on their own got very used to seeking out their advisor for advice and counsel when they needed it. And that's invaluable. If you have a system that does that, basically you have someone else who's helping you raise your child in the toughest moments. So I couldn't be happier with both of our children's experience there.
Yeah. Rosemary, can you add to that?
Yeah, I just wanted to add, as somebody who's on the other side of the country, one of the things that's really nice is having the opportunity to do Zoom meetings with the advisor. And then when one of us is on campus, we always book an appointment, a live appointment with the advisor. So we really feel like we know that person as just about as well as any of the rest of you who may be in driving distance. So it's really pretty seamless. The other thing I wanted to just add is while there's a certain amount of emotional support and problem solving, the advisor performs a function that's different from the counseling function at CSW, which is also terrific and is also really important, even before you know, the experiences that we've been going through the last month. So I think one of the things that's really strong is that the advisory performs sort of a basic function of sort of a home base for a whole lot of different first line problem solving. And then the students get referred to other professionals or other resources as they might need some additional support.
Great. I would actually like to add just an anecdote that happened earlier today. So my son, as a senior, has a advisor. He has a college counselor, and this year he has a capstone that he's working on, and he's lucky enough that there's one person who wears all three of those hats. And so even though the kids are on spring break this week, his advisor scheduled a meeting for the advisory group to get together, and it was a Monday morning 10 o'clock meeting, and Jason got up for it, and he was really excited to get on the phone or on a Zoom call like this with his advisory and with his advisor. And then today I overheard him, you know, just thanking his advisor, who is his college counselor, for all of the help and the support that he's gotten this year. So I definitely feel like that advisory system and program has really benefited Jason in a really great way that not only I feel really good about, but he also appreciates and feels good about too. And you know, there aren't that many times where teenagers have another adult in this world who's really looking out for them, and Cambridge School really provides that for their students. So, does anybody else want to talk anything else about advisory? No? Okay, let's go to another question. Let's see, what are 2 things about CSW that helped you decide it was the right fit for your child? And follow-up question, now that you or your child are members of CSW, have those things remained just as important to you and your child? Or have there been other things that have been just as, if not more important than those original aspects? It's a great question. Who wants to go first? Rosemary, I see your hand still up. Do you want to take that first?
Sure. You know, the thing for us was actually from the moment of receiving our acceptance information, which I'm not sure if it's still being done, but we got an adorable video message that was so irreverent and creative. And to me, it was so distinctive. It just made us feel warm and supported right out of the gate. And that irreverence and creativity has been absolutely consistent for these 2 years so far. And we feel that this school is something special that you just cannot find this combination of interesting people and bright, friendly people just about anywhere else. So we've really felt lucky since that first morning we opened that video.
Great.
I echo what Rosemary said. The excitement of opening that unique video and just seeing Kai be just in awe of that welcome letter. And then I think for me, it's funny. I told someone the other day, when I think of I love the school, then I fall in love even more. As again, freshmen, this is our first year. And so everything that we or I have been participating in, I just walk away with goosebumps. Like, I can't believe this is such an incredible experience. And I think it's between the teachers and the advisory and being at Kai's basketball game, as a boarding parent as well, just seeing her dorm parents hold her up so well has been truly special. And so I am still in that honeymoon phase of, you know, something happens and I'm still like, I'm down, like I'm calling other people, like, just had this most amazing time or an event, or I keep falling in love over and over again.
Great. Does anyone else want to add anything to that? No? All right, next question. We know that CSW has an exceptional arts program and have been so impressed with the quality of engaging that aspect of a student. But what about the quote unquote basic skills of teaching students the art of writing, math, etc.? Mike, do you want to take that question?
Yeah, I would love to. So when our oldest was in middle school, the only two things that really made him happy were kind of technology and drawing. Like he loved computers and he loved art. And so when he chose CSW, we really were looking at like, oh, this place is an amazing art program and it's really good. He's going to flourish there. Honestly, he hasn't really taken that many art classes. And now that he's a senior, what's been kind of amazing is he's really found his legs like as an all-around student. The intersection of those two, art and technology, is now like, you know, design, engineering. He's got into college. He's going to be a mechanical engineer, we think. Things change, but he really loves those things with a passion. But like, he's a really good writer now, and it kind of connects back to the advisory question. I think of like the advisory system at CSW as advisors, plural. The school, because it's smaller, because it has a boarding component, because the faculty and staff are eating meals, you know, with students, you really get to build direct personal relationships with faculty in a way that certainly wasn't true of my high school experience, where, you know, there was like a cafeteria and there was like a faculty lounge and like the two did not mix. And so when he had English classes with a teacher with a well-deserved reputation for, you know, really challenging students, he just really bonded with her. And you could tell that even though he wasn't necessarily interested in the books for their subject matter, he really wanted to impress her. He wanted to make her proud. And his writing skills just shot through the roof. He is just, it defies explanation. So I think that's sort of an example of kind of how sometimes the passion for one area can suddenly lead you into another. He loves calculus, and I think a lot of it's because his teacher helps them see that like there is an art to the math, like if you look at it through the right lens.
Great. Anybody else want to talk about sort of the basic skills? So I think I can sort of mimic what Mike is saying as well. My son Jason is a very strong math and science guy, and he, you know, struggles a lot with writing, but the writing program that the school puts in place from freshman year through junior and even into senior year really sort of is like a set of building blocks, and it all sort of like, you know, you're sort of honing a skill for, in particular for writing as a freshman, and then in sophomore year you're sort of building on the skills that you learned as a freshman, so that by the time you get to junior year you're building on the skills from freshman and sophomore year, which is perfect timing because then you're writing college essays. And the type of college essay that Jason was able to pull together, college essays, plural, that he was able to pull together for his college applications were just amazing. And I don't know if I would have ever imagined that would have been possible when he was a freshman. So that's just one example of a basic skill. You know, for him, it's really created a very balanced student too, because you don't always get a math and science kid with a strong writing background, but I feel like he's going to be launching into college next year really as a very well-rounded student. So Steve, did you want to add to that as well?
Yeah, you know, I'm thinking when we're talking basic skills, that it was steered right towards academics. And I think, you know, for me, the basic skills that were really honed and strengthened for my kids have been the ability to collaborate, the ability to figure out how can I contribute to a certain circumstance, whether it's, gosh, I'm the strongest person in the classroom, and so maybe I should be helping other people, or I don't really know what I'm doing, and so I've got to figure out how do I ask this person for help. And, you know, I've seen that with each of my children in different contexts. And for my daughter, it really became this wonderful blossoming of confidence and leadership now with athletics, where she had never played field hockey prior to CSW. And I think with my son, he actually had the chance on a couple occasions to be a teaching assistant in 2 classes with 2 of his absolute favorite teachers. And he did real work. I think my daughter completed her teaching assistance this year. And they do real work. They're really put in charge, and they get to put a lesson out there and help students throughout a class. And so those are really important basic skills. And I think in different schools, it's not always thought of as gosh, how do we create that?
Great. John, did you have something else to add?
Sure, real quick, Diane. I love what Steve said about collaboration, but one other thing that I think CSW instills in our kids, you walk in there and everyone calls the teachers by their first names, right? So there's this instant connection to the adults. She has become a wonderful self-advocate, which I think is a skill set that will help her as she moves beyond in her academic career. You need to be a great self-advocate in college. You need to be able to engage with your professors and talk on their level. And you start learning that from day one at CSW.
Great. Okay, next question. I'm gonna count on my boarding parents here for this next question. Could parents of boarders share a bit about their experience with staying connected to the school, especially if they are not close enough to attend events, games, performances regularly? So can Karen or Rosemary, Karen, do you want to start us off with that question?
I'll start because I'm sure Rosemary being further away. So fortunately, I am 30 minutes away. So I feel like I have been able to be there to see, Kai's games and to see the events. But the times when I've been, busy or unable to come or cope with a meeting, everything is recorded. So I feel like I've had the dual enjoyment of Kai, I can't come to a basketball game or an event that has happened, but I'll, see, I think the communication is beautiful. The newsletter that comes out every week with the different links to see what's happening. I feel incredibly connected, and we're a local family. And I also think, again, with the dorm parents and the advisor, there are all of these different avenues with which I know how Kai is doing and thriving. And I also think that all of the building blocks that happened in the beginning of the year build that trust that I trust the dorm parents to take care of her as well and to communicate with me if anything goes wrong. So, and nothing has. So it's been fantastic. I feel very much in the loop, even when I'm not able to step on campus.
Great.
Yeah, and I can tag in on that. I would say for all of our kids, there's usually sort of one signature passion that they have. And for Cameron, it's dance. And so it's actually really predictable that there's going to be dance concert once a year. And it is a special thing to make an opportunity for at least one of the parents or guardians in your household have a chance to come out and see that. So I'm not going to lie, I think it's a good thing to plan on coming to campus a couple times a year and being able to see those really signature experiences that your child is a part of. I think it is true that an awful lot of stuff is recorded. There's some wonderful communications that we can read. That's terrific. The other thing I would just say, and this is responsive to a question that came up on the chat earlier about the interaction between boarding and day students and families. I mean, I might tear up when I say that the day student families have been amazing. People I have not ever met have thrown birthday parties for my kid. They have taken my kid on spring break. They helped get my kid back to California this last month. And so there's a whole community of people that gets knit together between day and boarding around the relationships that your child makes. And to me, I'll be honest, I think I probably know more about what's going on with my kid than I knew before because of all these tools and supports and resources that are available.
And just to add as well, I mean, I could go on and on. The boarding experience has been really exceptional. Also, the aspects of the way that CSW has drawn us in. Like, I am a volunteer to do the gift to the other boarder, right? And that's like somebody who I don't know. I have to write a letter. They send me this, blurb of like this student. Again, it's all of these ways that continue to foster connections that just make you feel a part of even as a boarding family. I think that's also been really unique and just special, so that it's a way for me to be a part of, but also students know that there's a community, there's like this extension of family that's there for you. That's just been amazing.
Great. John, do you want to add something?
Sure. So as a day family, regardless of whether my daughter has a piece of art or is performing in an end of mod art show, we show up because we're there to support her friends. Another way that we've gotten involved, which I have to tell this story every time I speak with a potential CSW family, is there's Birthday for Boarders, where a day family can sign up to send a package to the boarding student on their birthday to show them some love. And you get a little background on the kids. So the interest from ours was that they wanted to receive Lucky Charms, but not the cereal, just the marshmallows, which I did not realize you can actually order from Amazon. Amazon is amazing. Thank you, Diane.
Fantastic. Okay, we'll grab another question from one of our participants. What has been the biggest surprise for your child about their CSW experience? Maybe something that they thought things would be like when they got there, and maybe for better or for worse, it was different. Mike, do you want to start us off?
Yeah, I mean, I think this echoes some of the things I was saying earlier, but when your kids are in middle school and you've spent obviously your entire life with them, you think you have a really clear model for what their strengths are. Like, you think kind of what they're good at. And I can tell you that I was wrong. Like, I have really seen both my kids exhibit these things that I didn't know that they had capacity for, that now they really get a kick out of. My oldest, honestly, like, he'll probably kick me for saying this, so he can't hear me. In middle school, he kind of had a lot of social anxiety. He did not like engaging with other people. He would do it, but kind of under duress. Turns out he's got a real knack for public speaking. He like really enjoys it. And so whether it's in some of his history classes where they're doing debates, or whether it's, kind of talking to other adults about the robotics team, it's just a really happy space for him. And it's led to some really interesting opportunities for him outside of school. My youngest, who, is a very, just really enjoys kind of like homework, kind of book smarts kind of thing, really, really loved being on the technical theater crew. He loves carpentry and construction, and really got a kick out of making these amazing, complicated sets for the production of Alice in Wonderland. So yeah, it's the biggest surprise, I think, is that you have these kids, you think them like better than everybody, and they surprise you because they have potential that you just didn't realize, which I am pretty grateful for.
Great. Steve, can you add some more to that?
Yeah, and this is going to sound kind of strange because it's only specific to families that have multiple children at the same school at the same time. But what I think surprised both Sam and Elise for the 2 years that they overlapped was how much they enjoyed going to school together. There are only two, where we only have 2 children. And I know both of them were thinking, what is it going to be like going to school with my sibling? And they loved it. Sam, on his final day in front of the, in an all-school meeting, he had a very touching tribute to her, which was really out of character. And I say it because I think that that's kind of endemic of what this community is like. It creates these opportunities for unexpected connections that are really deep and meaningful. Now, 10 days into stay-at-home confinement, I'm not sure they're still feeling all of that quite amount of love for each other. But by and large, it was an incredible experience, and I think that's what we've seen with their other friends too, including with boarders and people from just different schools and backgrounds.
Great. Very good. John?
Yeah, I would echo what both Mike and Steve were saying. I don't think CSW allows kids to be put into boxes. Maybe the way that we're guilty of as parents. There's, that kid's a theater kid, or that kid's a math kid, or that kid's an athlete, or that kid's a musician. It just simply doesn't happen at CSW, and I think that's an enormous testimonial to the faculty and staff to engage kids and bring out the most in all of their interests.
Great. All right, another question from one of our participants. When your child has class-related questions or runs into trouble, how often do they contact their teacher? Do they find them in person, email them? Are parents encouraged to contact the school or teachers if something comes up? Or should we really leave it to the students to handle it? Rosemary, why don't you start us off?
Yeah, I would say, partly this is what expectations you've set with your child, but I'll just sort of speak to how we've handled it in our family. Is Cameron is the first line, and we'll approach a teacher by any of those methods. Email, we'll approach them in the dining hall, we'll make an appointment to see them. One of the things that's so great is how approachable and available the faculty have been. And I think maybe unlike our middle school experience, we've found that there's almost always flexibility. So if there's a challenge, there's sort of a way through, rather than this idea of, if I don't get it perfect tonight by 9:30, my life is over kind of thing. And it turns out that's how the real world works. Of course, there are deadlines that we try to hit. There's expectations that we want to achieve, but there's complications that occur in life. And so I think the students navigating through that with the faculty works pretty well most of the time. And often they come to some accommodation. There's a whole lot of support for students working through, if it's sort of more of an academic problem that they're having and understanding a concept. And so we've rarely had to do any escalation in the 2 years that we've been at the school.
Great. Does anybody else want to add anything, Mike?
Yeah, I mean, there were points in at my son's previous school where I felt like we had to advocate for our kid, like where it like that if we wouldn't do it, no one else was going to. CSW has been the exact opposite. I've always felt the ability to ask questions, but I've never really felt the need to, like, once or twice. And I think, we were talking before about building these real skills, and Steve talked about this earlier. Like when our kids all kind of go off to college and have careers, this idea of like advocating for yourself, of like building relationships, seeking help, finding a mentor, like, kids don't, like, young adults don't kind of pull that skill out of a hat. Like, you have to learn it. And I think CSW does a really nice job of like setting expectations and making kids understand, like, no, you can do this. Like, you will have questions. That's like how learning works. You will get confused. You will, have setbacks. And we are all in this together. And I really value that a lot. Whatever, look, we're all, we wouldn't all be on this kind of like session if we weren't sort of like parents who were kind of in a particular mindset about education and kind of making, kind of some pretty thoughtful choices about like what our kids are going to do next. So whatever you've read about helicopter parenting, like CSW, like, is like the opposite of that, I think. So.
Great. Steve?
Yeah, I loved how you said that the opposite of helicopter parent. I actually think having my children at CSW has made me a better parent, because I had to pretty early on realize that this was my child or my children's responsibility to make it work. And that doesn't mean that they were on their own and that we never talked about anything, but it was something where I remember talking to my son's advisor, Eli, and being really anxious because Sam came in at 10th grade and he had to make the most of shorter track to be ready for college. And Eli said, he'll get there. He's going to do it. You got to give him the space to do it. And we trusted him. And we've seen that, bear wonderful fruit in the first year Sam had in college, and how confident he is going to a different country and getting his apartment for next year. All this stuff that, man, I never would have done that as a freshman, probably not as a senior either. But that's where I think it's been better. And so I like to think my relationship with both of my kids have been better because of that.
Great. All right, we have another question about scheduling, maybe, and what a day feels like as a student. So what is a typical day for a day student? How much homework a night? And how does this mix with family life at the end of the day? I think we have talked a little bit about homework and workload. I can speak to our family's experience. Jason, obviously, Jason and I spent a lot of time commuting back and forth together to school, or we did for the first 3 years of high school. So we had a lot of quality time spent in the car driving back and forth. And I think his homework load in the evening, it just kind of depended on the mod and what he was working on. Again, maybe freshman, sophomore year, those writing assignments kind of took a long time and were rather frustrating for him. But we were still able to have a lot of quality time, when we got home from school and with eating dinner together. And we were able to sort of help him balance his work and homework load into our family life and our family routine at home pretty easily. So I would say that the typical day feels very very comfortable for Jason and very easy to kind of come and go into, and it's not too, he's not staying too late at school, and definitely can manage his time pretty well.
Yeah, I think back many years ago. For me, when I made the transition from high school to college, the biggest change for me was the amount of unstructured time I had in college. Whereas high school for me was completely structured. It was bells ringing every 50 minutes and just programmed. And I feel that our kids at CSW, because of the mod system, because of this block scheduling, have a more collegiate experience. It's not as much, right? It's appropriate for 9th, 10th, 11th grade. In 9th grade, like my kids, they chose to do most of their work at school. That was a choice they made. As they've matured in different ways, both the amount of work has increased, which is appropriate, right? Because of choices they've made academically. And also they're probably spending more time kind of interacting with their peers than they might have when they were 9th grade boys. And so they're bringing more of that home with them. And in both cases, it's a good thing. So I can't say that it means that they always talk to us a lot over family dinner, because they're still teenage boys. So CSW cannot solve for that.
I would just follow what Mike said and just say that there's just not a lot of channel changing. In a typical high school, you probably have 5, 6, 7 different courses you're taking at once. And at CSW, you're taking at most 3 academic courses at once, plus what you might be taking in that 4th block as a sport or an art or an activity. So there can be a lot of work, but at least you're able to spend more time with fewer topics. And I think that leads to a more reflective person.
Yeah, I sorry to chime in again, but I think back to the question about surprises. So the things that have legitimately surprised me were when one of my kids said, "Hey, I got to go back to school this Saturday because we're going to do a math thing all day. There's this applied math kind of exercise that we can do, and it's with a local college, and I want to do it. I was like, okay, like that's a pretty good problem to have. Like, hey, I need you to wake up early Saturday morning and drive me to school so I can do math. Like, was not expecting that. And when, yeah, so that's, but like, again, that theme of like, but busy work, like on a Tuesday, no, I never felt that.
Great. Steve, we have a question directed for you. You mentioned that your son Sam started as a 10th grader at Cambridge School, and we have a participant who has a question. Their daughter will be an incoming 10th grader, and how was sort of the integration experience for you for Sam coming in as a 10th grader and not coming in as a freshman?
You know, it's interesting. I think for Sam, so his entry was fine. It took a while for him to get going, but it would have taken a while for him to get going in 9th grade. It's just who he is. He's kind of a watcher and a glue kind of guy. So he likes to see how things are working, and then he finds a way where he can fit in and support people and you know, help that way. So it's fine, and it was great. Again, I think the lack of stratification by grades and the fact that kids are so often intermingling between grades, they don't necessarily think a lot about, well, I should be hanging out with the 10th graders. Two of his best friends from CSW are a student who was a year ahead of him. So he graduated a year ahead, and Sam had to figure out, okay, what do I do now? And one of his best friends is now a senior there. And he was a boarder, actually. And so, you know, it's one of these situations where you just find your way in and you find your friend group. And I think people watched out for him, just like they did for my daughter. You know, the advisors watched out. They made sure things were going okay, and they checked in.
Yeah. Yeah, no, and I think that that's a great, another great plug for the advisory program. I think that when students are coming in, whether they're coming in at 10th or 11th grade, as most of our students would come in if they're not entering at 9th grade, the advisory group, I think, sort of becomes kind of your support group. And, you know, you immediately have an adult who's looking out for you in the community, and you have a group of 4 or 5 students who are also going to be looking out for you as well. So I think that's a great use of great example of this, that program as well. Great. Let's see, we have another question from a participant. What about your child's experience at CSW has made the biggest impact on your child? And has your child's experience at CSW lived up to the expectations that you had? We may have talked about this a little bit already. One of the things that I wanted to add was, you know, when Jason started as a freshman, I think that he had this idea that he had all these things that he wanted to do. And when he got to campus, he wanted to kind of jump in with 2 feet and do all of it. And I think one of the things that surprised him and surprised me was that he tried to jump in with 2 feet, but there was too many other things that he had to kind of balance, you know, workload and commuting back and forth to school. There were just a lot of things that he had to do. And I think that what was surprising to me was that he was able to, with the support of lots of different adults in the community and his friends, sort of learn over time how to take a leadership role, how to balance all of his interests and find the time to do all of the things that he really wanted to do. And as a freshman, I never believed that he would be able to figure all of that out. But he did, and he was, and again was due to a lot of just the support of friends and the teachers and faculty in the community. Rosemary, did you want to add something?
Yeah, I just want to say, I don't think that there's a single event or experience that had the biggest impact, but I think we can acknowledge that these last few years have been some of the most trying in our nation's history. And sending our children to a school, whether it's 10 minutes, 30 minutes, or a 6-hour flight away, is a big risk to take. And the school has risen to the occasion in so many different incredible ways, from the way that the counseling function has really been stood up to provide support to the students, to a lot of innovative academic programs where the history department put into context what was going on with the impeachment hearings, to how the school has responded to having to really retool the entire program, eliminate the mod abroad that at least my kid was planning on going to. They would have left tomorrow. All of these things show that this is an institution that's extraordinarily well prepared to handle a very difficult time for young people. And there's only one thing that I really care about, and that's my kids' happiness. And this is a difficult time to assure that that is taking place. And so I will answer the second part of the question that was posed, that we've been blown away, and CSW has exceeded all of our expectations, and because we couldn't have imagined all of the things that we have encountered in the last 2 years. And we still feel, all things being equal, this was absolutely the right choice for our kid and our family.
Fantastic. Okay, so we have a question about college matriculation and the college process. We have a couple of senior parents here and a parent of an alum. Does anyone want to start off with a comment about that? Mike?
Yeah, I can speak to it. I think what I would say is that, look, if you crack open a newspaper, or you just look on the internet, you know that kind of like, as a country, like the college process is like kind of reaching kind of peak crazy right now. And so I feel like the college selection application process at CSW was like shockingly humane. It never felt that our oldest kid who's gone through it, was like under the gun, or like, feeling kind of stressed. I think because the process was really, really good. Many, many years ago, I used to teach writing, and both high school and college. And so we had this kind of turn of phrase about, kind of focusing on process over product. I think a lot of families are very product focused, or very outcome focused on college. Like, hey, there's a certain kind of college we have in mind for our 8th grader or 9th grader. And what I've really, really enjoyed and appreciated is that CSW is all about process. Like if you do the work, okay, if you let your kid really discover what he, she, or they like loves to do, like what really fires them up, they're going to be a really good applicant. There's going to be a school out there that will just be like, wow, I want that person on my campus. That's how it played out for us. We've been just really delighted by it.
Great. Steve, is there anything you wanted to add?
I would add, I guess it's student focused. Both of some of my daughters going through the process just started. Well, we were just invited into the process recently. I think the kids are supported well before the parents come in the process. And that's really important. They're the ones charting the course. And so, yeah, I'd never heard of the college before that my son's attending, before he started looking in Canada to go to schools. We don't have any Canadians in our family. We just vacation there. That's it. And his advisor said, hey, yeah, let's go look at it. Let's see, but let's also look at some other things closer to home so you have a basis of comparison. My daughter's really different, and he's taking the same approach with her. It's, what do you want to do? And he's pushing her. He's really making her do her research, do her visits, think about it. And then we get involved. And I think from a parental perspective, what's been really empowering for us is he's asked us questions too. And what are the parameters for us? And how should we be thinking about that? Cost always comes up when you think of American colleges. And, he's really frank about it and respectful and opens up conversation so that I feel like I can raise some issues that are really on my mind too.
Great. Does anybody else want to comment on college matriculation, college process? John, did you want to add something?
Sure. Thanks, Diane. How about ease of use? Okay. We were paired with this wonderful gentleman who is Katie's advisor. And when I say he's Katie's advisor, he's not ours. He's Katie's. Just like Steve said, it is the kids' process. By now, midway through their junior year, they have a really good feel for who they are and what they want to do next and where they want to be and how they want to do it. But with that being said, they help them work through this. I know there are a lot of families out there who look and hired, high octane, very expensive consultants. There is no need for that at CSW. They give you they talk to the kids write up what they're interested in, and they come back with a list. It's that simple. And you're like, oh my God. And by the way, we're like, wow, that's a good list. This is great. Everyone was thrilled. My daughter was thrilled. The parents were thrilled. You just have to, keep expectations where they should be and just understand at the end of the day, you want your kid to be happy.
Yeah.
And by the way, everyone we're talking to right now needs to figure out where they're going to high school first, and it should be CSW.
Thank you. Thank you all very much. And I can just add to that, as the parent of a senior, it's all about fit. The college counselors, they know your kid inside and out when they're paired with your kid. And they will research whatever school if they don't know about a school, they'll do the research about the school. If they do know about a school, they'll talk to your student about it if they feel like it's the right fit. And it's really all about the right fit for your student and what their interests are in, and it's just what's going to make them happy. And I couldn't really be more thrilled about the whole process for Jason. So it's been really great. And he, with all of his experience at school, he's well prepared to launch into college. I really couldn't be happier. So great question. We have a couple of people who are interested in student culture at CSW. How would you describe the student culture at CSW? Does anyone want to start us off with that question?
I can jump in and say that I don't think there is just one culture of students at CSW. I think there's an overarching, as I talked about before, sort of ethos of inclusion, fun, and creativity. And beyond that, there are these naturally occurring social groups and culture that emerge out of the different experiences and sort of areas of passion and interest that the students have. One of the things that I love is all of the intersections where sort of like my kid is interested in cheering on your kids who play Ultimate, and was apparently going to be like an assistant manager for the Ultimate team. So it's sort of one of the disappointments of this period of time. But what it goes to show is that even kids that aren't athletes can get connected to athletes. Even kids that aren't artists can show up and support by doing the technical stuff for the theater. And I think the overall sort of thrust of what I've picked up on is sort of jumping in and doing stuff, pushing yourself and exploring something you never thought you would be good at or you would be picked for. And that's what's, if you were to boil it down, that's what the culture is all about.
Great. Very good.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with that more. I think that a lot of times high schools develop, despite their best intentions, like monocultures, right? Where they're sort of like, hey, this is like who a fill in the blank school kid is, which is great if that's your jam. And if it's not, then not so much. And I think CSW has just leaned in like culturally and structurally to create like this amazingly super healthy biodiversity of cultures, like where like it's richer because all these kids have these amazingly varied strengths and passions. And so, building on the ultimate Frisbee example, like, my son, it does not, is not a theater goer. He doesn't like think about the theater, doesn't think about dance a lot, but because he has art requirements, he had the opportunity to like, do lighting for one of the dance productions. And like, he was into it. Like he was, forced, but like ultimately had this amazing experience. We had to really talk very, very deeply with the student who was doing the solo dance production. It was really her show, but he was responsible for helping pull it off. And it was a really just powerful interaction that really made a big impression on him. And I think, and he goes to those shows now, like he did in the 9th grade. But now he does, because he gets it. He's like, oh yeah, I understand now what my peers are doing.
Great. Very good. We have a question about affinity groups. So Cambridge School, sort of dovetailing on that student culture question, Cambridge School has a variety of not only interest groups, but also affinity groups and opportunities for lots of different groups of students to gather together. So this question is, can someone talk about affinity groups and opportunities for students of color? I know we have a couple of affinity groups that definitely tailor to that. Does anybody want to chime in?
And so Kai has spoken about 2 affinity groups that she absolutely loves. I don't know what it's called. United Students of Color, I think it is. US.
Exactly.
Right.
USC. Yep.
Yes. Thank you. And she started that as soon as she got onto campus and speaks very highly of it, and she enjoys that space. And then the other one is Circle of Sisters, where it's not race-based, but they all come together as a circle of sisters and lift each other up. And Kai has enjoyed that thoroughly. It's her space to be. And she's felt very much a part of it, as a freshman.
Mm-hmm. It's nice to also make note that these affinity groups are supported by a faculty member, but they are very much student run. So these are definitely opportunities where all students can have an opportunity for leadership, but also have a nice place to own something. And it also kind of makes it a very welcoming place for students to feel like they are welcome to join. So it's a really great safe space for kids. So thank you, that was great.
I just wanted to add a couple things. One is that some kids aren't joiners, and that being part of an affinity group isn't the only way to find your people. And I've observed that can occur in a lot of different ways, which I think is also wonderful. And then I think the other thing that students have been expressing, and I've seen it from my kid and others, is a shared responsibility for learning your history and understanding privilege and working through that in a really thoughtful way. And there is a sort of calling in behavior that occurs amongst the students when somebody says something insensitive or inappropriate, and rather than the calling out behavior, which can be shaming and embarrassing, a calling in is an opportunity for learning. And that again is what I think we're striving for in this world, is to have a shared responsibility. So it's not one group's sole obligation or interest to combat racism, homophobia, what have you. It's everybody's responsibility, and I'm really excited about the way that the school kind of comes together in that regard.
If I can also add, Rosemary, to just piggyback off of you, I feel the need to say that in the past, in Kai's 8th grade, she felt the weight of her identity as a Afro-Caribbean student, and she carried that, in a really not healthy way. And in her freshman year, it's something that I pay close attention to see how she carries that. And so you spoke to it very eloquently. Kai hasn't had to carry that burden of or feel that weight of I'm carrying or owning this, you know, history piece or who she is in this space. And that's been, I think that's been welcoming for both of us.
Great. So it looks like we're kind of coming up on the end of our Q&A session. So thank you all very much for participating. Just a few more things to do before we sign off. For anyone participating in the program or any of our panelists, does anyone have any final thoughts that they'd like to add? One question that that I've been asked to sort of ask you all to do is if there's one piece of information or advice or something about Cambridge School of Weston that you'd like to leave with our participants that hasn't been covered, just one little nugget of something that you'd like to leave with. Does anybody want to sort of give their sort of last nugget before we sign off? Steve?
This is, you can follow me through on this. This is kind of the admissions office rogue comment nightmare, but I did notice that a couple times people said, so what disappointed you? What was wrong with is there anything wrong with this school? And I would say it's been a wonderful experience, but you know, every school can't be everything all the time. And, you know, watching my daughter come in with real excitement to try a new sport with field hockey. In her first couple seasons, they didn't have enough players. And so she had to decide, what am I going to do with that? And what she and her other teammates did was they went and they hustled and promoted the team and got enough players so that they could play a season. Now, they were the most fit players going because they didn't have a bench of more than one. But that was an incredible leadership opportunity for her. And I think, you know, to me, that was a sign of a great school. It gave her the opportunity to figure it out. And I think on a much smaller level, there are times when you build out this schedule, which is 6 mods, 3 courses at a time. I can't imagine what the scheduler has to do to get it all done. There are times a kid doesn't get a course that they want. And what happens is you have this fortuitous little movement into a course you never thought you'd want to take. And it turns out to being something that opens up another area of interest. So in the interest of full disclosure, I just wanted to say, you know, things happen, but this school's really good at saying, what can we make of that? How's it an opportunity?
Mm-hmm. Perfect.
So I'll throw my nugget out, which is, you know, if there's one thing CSW does uniquely well, it's like building young adults who are really flexible, creative problem solvers and thinkers. They don't feel they have to blunt themselves or sand off their edges about what they really care about to fit in. And as a result, they're really given an opportunity to be truly excellent in the things that they're really passionate about. And if there's one thing that the past 3 or 4 weeks have like kind of taught all of us is that life comes at you fast, right? There's a lot of stuff where we weren't expecting and you have to deal with it. And so having that kind of flexibility and creativity and curiosity and being able to kind of like really deal with change and solve problems, like that's not just a high school skill. That's college, that's real world, that's life. Building those skills now sets all of our children up for like long-term health and wellness and success.
Great, thank you. Anyone else? Okay, well, before we leave, we have a poll for all participants to participate in. It's a virtual poll. At the bottom of your screen, you'll see a polling button. And if you want to click on that and participate in the poll, please go ahead. We're trying to determine if anyone is interested in a future virtual parent event with breakout rooms so that people can join in and in smaller groups and talk with parents. So please take a few minutes to take part in the poll. If you have any questions, you can feel free to email me directly at dstansbury@csw.org. You can also feel free to email admissions@csw.org. And if you're interested in speaking with any of the panelists, we can provide their contact information offline. So thank you very much. We'll let the poll run for a little bit more, and I think that that's it. So good night, and thank you so much for joining. Bye, everyone.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.